Good morning, class. Thank you for tuning in today. I am called the Infomancer, and I will be your teacher. So, today what I am going to go over is the creation of magical worlds. I'm sure that's something that should interest plenty of people, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be able to create their own world? Doesn't that sound awesome? That basically makes you a god. Yes, it's only on paper, but still. You are the god. You get to decide everything. And with that being said, we're going to just jump right into it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do when creating your new world is you're going to want to decide what belongs and what doesn't. For the example that I'm going to use, I'm going to make a magical world, of course, and I'm going to first set up the terrains. I want to know what's in my world. What sort of landscapes are you going to come across? That's important, right? Because that tells you whether your world exists mostly as not just one singular world, but several worlds in different planes, or several worlds that include space. I mean, if your world is like the top of the moon, there's not going to be much going on except for some craters. Whereas if your world is completely underground, you're probably going to have a lot of rock columns and spires and stalagmites and stalactites and massive caverns, some rivers and lakes maybe, but you're probably not going to get a whole lot of trees. Probably not going to find a desert. So this is what you want to know. Knowing what's in your world will help you to create your world. And so for my example, and I will show it to you here, I don't know if you can really read this, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it around towards me. And please pardon that I'm looking away from you. I'm sure I do it more than just when I read, though. But the terrains that I decided to put into my world were forests and swamps. I combined lakes and rivers to sort of mean wetlands. And I also wanted to have hills and mountains, plains and deserts. So we basically got Earth here. I'm missing jungles, but that's alright. I'll add that in if you guys would like, but that's not necessary. This is just an imaginary thing. It's whatever we want. However, I did add some things that, I guess I have also tunnels, caves, and underground. All with slashes between them because they're kind of one thing. It's like a world underneath the world. And I have oceans, but I have in parentheses that it's all fresh water. I've removed salt water from this world. And that's an important thing because that tells me that sharks can be swimming up rivers and be in lakes, and so they can be anywhere. Same with jellyfish. Anything that can be in our oceans can now be in any lake or river or anything, as well as whatever fantastical creatures I decide to put in here, right? So, but I did add one other thing. I added what I called aether roads, and it was just quick thought, and it was just aerial pathways where in the air there's literal solid ground, and you can find it, like you'd smack into an invisible wall and you know, oh wait, this is an aerial pathway, and if you find the way onto it, you can figure out the invisible pathway to travel through the air. You never have to worry about being robbed or something. I thought that was kind of a cool idea, just a random throw in. Nothing super important really. But still, that adds a little bit of something. I know that, alright, I can have people that are comfortable with being in the sky, maybe even people that live up there, I don't know. It's a possibility. At the very least, it should make travel and trade easier and safer, because how do you rob somebody in the middle of the sky, right? It's perfectly safe. So, after you've done that, you probably want to decide, if like me you've decided to make it just one world, how many continents you're going to have. If you've decided to include several worlds and planes, that's going to be your first step. You're going to want to decide how many. And if you're including space, well, you need to decide how many different planets you're going to see, how many different stars you're going to go by, etc. But I went with just one world to try and keep it as simple as possible. So here's this, and again, I don't know if you can read it. I've got some pretty poor handwriting and a pretty poor camera. But At first I decided how many continents I was going to have. And what's this world made of? And there's 13 continents. And it doesn't have to be that many. You could have just one. You could have 100 if you wanted to. I personally just like the number 13. And so after that, I decided, all right, I need to distribute how are these continents going to be sized, because that's going to be relevant to their power, in most cases anyways. So I decided I'm going to have 5 large continents. I figure those will be the powerhouses that kind of rule everything, really. And then I've got 6 small continents and 2 medium. The 6 small continents kind of just, I figured they're small, they don't have a whole lot of power. Yes, they're independent because they're their own continent, but since they're small, they can't resist really, so they can go along with whatever the others say. And the medium ones are a bit larger. They can kind of hold their ground against the large ones, so they operate more independently and are a little rowdier and harder to deal with. I limited that number because I didn't want too much problems in my world, but I do need some, and that's what makes a good story. And after that, you want to decide the inhabitants of your world. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, I suppose. You could also decide next on what the technology is going to be. I picked medieval technology. I usually pick that as a 4th step, but the 4th and 3rd are pretty interchangeable. But after that, you decide what your inhabitants are going to be. And here I have a pretty decent list, I think. I don't know if you can get it all. Maybe in pieces, huh? But anyways, the inhabitants I chose were elves, humans, dwarves, goblins, orcs, giants, dragons, demons, angels, trolls, nerads, naiads, dryads, and fairies, as well as calnines and felnines, which are humanoid cats and dogs. And the naiads and dryads and nereids were different sorts of nymphs, for those of you who don't know. I picked you pick your inhabitants and your technology so you know what sort of struggles are going on and what sort of people you have to work with. And after that, you're ready to make your world, particularly in this case. Perhaps there's a little more when you